All right, in this video, we are going to talk about making the game rock, paper, scissors, which I'll just call RPS, for two players. Okay, so first off, we need to be able to enter the players to enter something. And now this is not going to be very realistic because, the players will be able to see what each other chooses. So, but all right. So I'm going to create a scanner object to take care of the input. And prompt player one to enter a choice, either R, P, or S. We're going to just assume that the players are perfect at this point, and they enter everything just just perfectly, right? And so so all right, so let's try that. All right, looks so far so good. So player one's going to enter some information, either an R, a P, or an S. Let's just go with lowercase. And we need to do the same thing for player two. Okay. And same thing, get their choice. All right, so that's the input phase. All right, we got player one's choice, player two's choice. All right, and then now we need to decide who's the winner. Again, it's not realistic because really player one and player two need to enter their choice at the same time. At least the input part, right? It's not going to be realistic. So now what we need to do is to print either player one wins, player two wins, or it's a tie. Okay, so what I'm going to do is break this down. And first, I'm going to look at what player one types in. Okay, so player one can either type in an R, a P, or an S. R for rock, P for paper, S for scissors, right? So P1, and then I want to check to see what case I'm in, right? So I'm going to use an if statement, right? And that should be equals R. And for right now, I'm just going to print something here. So just to make sure that this is working. All right, so you can see I have the message rock there. So that's good. All right, and so if player one equals R, then the next thing I'll do is check to see what player two wins, and depending on what they win, what player two enters, it's either a win, tie, or loss. Okay, and then the next thing is checking the case where player one enters P for paper. And remember to use dot equals instead of double equals, right, to compare two strings. So that's why we're using dot equals, because these are strings. If they don't enter rock and paper, then the only other choice is scissors. Now, again, this is because we are assuming that the user is perfect, right? They either type rock, paper, or scissors. Actually, we don't have to do that. So we can do we can make it so that they get a message if they type something else in. So let's go ahead and do that. Oops, I didn't want to do that. So down here in the else block, we'll put a message saying invalid input from player one. Okay. All right, let's test that out. So if player one enters R, if player one enters S, or paper, P for paper, it should say paper. If player one enters S, and it should say scissors. If player one enters anything else, it should say invalid input from player one. Okay. All right. So we've got player one situation kind of handled out with this else if statement. Right. All right. So next up is we're going to have to check player two's input inside each of these little if blocks right here. So we have a standard else if block. Inside this if block, right, we are going to check player two's, and we're going to have a very similar statement here. So if player two equals rock, then we are going to print it's a tie, right? Because they both entered. And here we definitely want to use the else if statement, right? Because if we used if, else, or just plain if statements, right, it might print it's a tie, player one wins and player two wins all at the same time, right? Which is not what we want to have happen, right? So here the else if statement is critical. All right, so if rock and scissors, then player one wins. And put this in the wrong way. I want to keep it organized. We'll put paper there. Rock, paper, scissors. So if it's paper, paper covers rock, right? So, and then we'll put the scissors case down here. System.out.println. Player 1 wins, right? Because rock smashes the scissors. Okay. All right. So that's the situation for player 2. So let's test that out. Make sure everything is looking good. We forgot a parenthesis there. And we also need the else in there that I forgot. And that means that player 2, if it comes all the way down to here, that means player 2 typed in something other than RP or S. Okay. So we will need to say invalid input from player 2. All right, I spelled player wrong up here. All right, let's test that out. All right, so player 1 enters rock and rock for player 2. Rock and paper. So paper covers rock. Rock and scissors. Rocks break scissors, right? And rock and something that doesn't make sense. Invalid input from player 2. Okay. And so that's it for the rock case. And you can see that it's going to be really, really similar for what goes in here and in here. So let's go ahead and do that. I am just going to cut and paste, right, this whole if-else block. And I'm going to paste it in here where I have paper and then make the changes. You'll see, all right, just another thing to point out, this else if is critical, right? Because you don't want a bunch of ifs in here separate from each other. You want to find the first one that's true and then exit. If you had separate ifs, right, I guess it would work as well. But there's really no point in checking, right? If the player types in P for paper, there's no point in checking whether it's S or anything else after that. Okay, so all right, I'll put that right here. All right, and cover those cases. If player 2 is rock, right, then and paper, so player 1 wins, right? And paper and paper, it's a tie. If player 2 is scissors and player 1 is paper, then player 2 wins because scissor cuts paper. And we can test that out. All right, so paper and rock. Paper and paper is a tie. Paper and scissors is player 2 wins, and paper and garbage is invalid input from player 2. And same thing down here, right, for scissors, and just make the necessary modifications. So rock, player 1 wins. Player 2, paper and scissors. That's player 2 wins because rock smashes the scissors, right? And then paper and scissors. Scissor cuts paper, right? So player 1 wins. If they're both scissors, then it's a tie. Otherwise, invalid input from player 2, and that should do it for us. Scissors rock smashes scissors, scissors and paper. Player 1 wins. Scissors and scissors is a tie, and then scissors and garbage is invalid input from player 2. All right, so looks good, and there's what it looks like. And that's it for this one.